Just hold on tight, yeah. She say like a bumper invitation. Don't be shy when I come around. This special flex is for special guests. I am one in a million. I never tired of the jumping. I take a trip and let me groove along. Sexy whining, little levy, you come together like a slow song. This time it is your time, baby. Let's focus on this wine, baby. This fest will be one of a kind, so prepare your mind and get ready for the jamming. You go have a time of your life. This sweetness feels like paradise. The way you walk on, you like any vibe. Something wrong now with a little vibe. So baby, just relax and give me inch by inch. Roll back on it, inch by inch. Rub up on it, inch by inch. And don't leave no space between us. Roll back on it, inch by inch. Throw back on it, inch by inch. Rub up on it, inch by inch. And don't leave no space between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. If we just hold on tight, nobody can come between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. Just hold on tight, yeah.
Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night here to all and sundry. You caught me there napping, yes. I tried to, of course, to do some last-minute adjustments that betrayed me in a sense. But that being as it may, yes, tonight, of course, is Monday night. And, of course, we said that we are going to go from Monday to Thursday. Yes, of course, the nuts and bolts, if you want to call it that, of the Kids Corner from 5:30 is still, of course, being put in place. So pretty soon you'll have it. There's a team of persons that Joshua is putting together. Yes, some of his friends, and he probably have grown into some kind of perfectionist because he wants to make sure that things are all right by the time, of course, he is ready to really, of course, display what he wants to. Of course, it will be focused on, of course, a lot of educational stuff, basic things. Yes, it will be about, arithmetic, even tables, challenge, spelling challenge, reading, the generation of what is considered to be essays or compositions that people will take from their heads based on a particular topic. That kind of a program Joshua is contemplated on. And incidentally, only today I think that the Commissioner of Police has been communicated with, because he wrote the Commissioner to ask him to visit his school, which is, of course, not too far from here. The last occasion he asked the President to visit and she visited. So he's asking the Commissioner of Police because of to ask some pointed questions, I suppose, like the state of emergency. What are some of the difficulties that young people get in times like this, and whether or not the police, because of their special powers, would act in a particular way. One expects that they will do so with a high degree of discretion and consideration for the rights of citizens, and not trample because of the presence of a state of emergency. That, by definition, of course, is recklessness and brutality. So all of those, I think, these young people have a right to, because they are the future. They are the ones that are going to look after Trinidad and Tobago in the future. But let's get back, of course, to that beautiful piece of a young brother, and of course his 2026 rendition. Let's see a little bit of it. As I said, we're going to spruce it up a bit, and we are going to act a little different, but we're bringing the same information. Let's see.
Spotify and YouTube.
give me inch by inch. Roll back on it inch by inch. Rub up on it inch by inch. And don't leave no space between us. Roll back on it inch by inch. Throw back on it inch by inch. Rub up on it inch by inch. And don't leave no space between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. If we just hold on tight, nobody can come between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. Just hold on tight, yeah. She say like a bumper invitation.
Yes, of course, that was selected not for any, what I consider sexual undertone, but to show that you need to know your measurement. You need to know your measurement in order to be a tailor, to be a carpenter, of course, and so many other vocations that would require accurate measurements. Yes, so the sexual implicitness or the insinuations we could do without.
And don't leave no space between us. Roll back on it inch by inch. Throw back on it inch by inch. Rub up on it inch by inch. And don't leave no space between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. If we just hold on tight, nobody can come between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us.
Yes, but of course, tonight, as I said, let me just reintroduce myself. Of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry, East, West, South, South, Central, our friends in Tobago, and wherever you are streaming on the world wide web. A pleasant good day to you. Tonight, of course, I want to put something to rest, and that is, of course, the propensity of the opposition to literally make or create a storm in a teacup and make themselves look like asinine specimen of, I don't want to be too unkind to them, but in all practicality, in all observable rationality, they are simply making a fool of themselves. Now here is Brown, and that is the technical issue I was trying to grapple with just now. I hope that I got it fixed. Here it is. They always, especially this crop of opposition elements, they keep being preemptive. They keep, of course, rushing in front. They keep totally out of context and premature, maybe that's the right word, premature in their efforts to not only appear to be relevant, but also to somehow gain political traction as a consequence of they suddenly find themselves having to take the position that they are now self-righteous political beings. But let's go to the line. Let me just make sure. Self-righteous political beings. Let me make sure and get this thing cracking. All right,
Good night, good night.
Are you hearing me? Are you hearing me? Not yet. Just
Are
you hearing me now?
Clearly.
Are you hearing me now?
Right, beautiful.
Okay,
beautiful.
good, beautiful.
I'm hearing you.
Yes, man,
You
yes.
hearing me too?
Yes,
you
yes,
hearing me?
I'm hearing you loud and clear, my friend. Crisp,
Beautiful. So
crisp.
let me open the button.
Go ahead, man.
I want to start with contribution of the Attorney General, JJ, on Friday evening.
Okay.
I think people have to listen attentively and understand all the information he has given us
Yeah.
about the former junior minister and his association with a financier who had dual citizenship, Trinidad and the UK, and starting a company close to registered that was close to Buckingham Palace. Now, now, Saddam, Minister Saddam Hussein got under the skin of Balmati, and she was very, very agitated. But this, when I listened carefully to what the Attorney General said, because Port of Spain South said because of this state of emergency, they got criminals out of the country, and he was happy about that. But JJ said, no, 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 no. Those people who are alleged very close to that political Balize Red House was expanding their business. It was a global entity.
Wow.
What he also
Serious. Should I say statement? I wouldn't say accusation, because coming from the Attorney General, that's someone that's supposed to be in the know. Yes, go ahead.
He is very, very careful to not tarnish anybody there, because he says he's afraid of going before the privileged committee.
Yeah.
But he said during one of those meetings, because you remember SOCA, that is the acronym for the UK Investigative Authority. And the UK Investigative Authority passed information about this particular financer.
Okay.
All right? And what he said, that financer and several people were planning to do hits on certain gang leaders in Trinidad and Tobago. So that's serious allegation. You have a junior minister in cahoot with another person in the UK, former company, discussing all of those things. I don't know, JJ, I can't recall him saying the minister might have been in the meeting. But what he said, as soon as
CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests, I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting from one Twin Island Republic to another one here, Trinidad and Tobago.
The CARICOM Heads of Government Conference
in the UK. But I put in 2 and 2 and getting 5, eh?
Right, I hear you.
All right. Who are the persons tipped off that junior minister to run up to the UK and change names? It only could have come from 2 sources. It could have come from senior government official or the police service. That is how heinous those crimes are. And to me, that is perverting the cause of justice.
Yes.
So an investigation is needed on that accusation, which was recycled in Parliament by a new, different person bringing the news. Before the news was brought, somebody suppressed it, somebody tipped off the relevant person who was being investigated by SOCA, the English authority.
The English investigative authorities, yes, go ahead. Yeah.
So it's either the police or senior government official who usually get all those special branch reports, boy. It was a former, you know. Always get that. You remember Metala Felon comings and goings?
Yes.
And he raised and say he have the special branch report, but there's nothing pinpointing to human business. So that is how. The other thing he said, a former prime minister would not have been embarrassed when they rub him down, I think is in Antigua or something like that. And what he was saying, you see the APIS, the Advanced Passenger Information System.
Yes.
If Trinidad was part of that, the man would never be embarrassed, because they would have known up front
who he
what
was.
is likely to happen. One thing I want to say,
Good.
He also said CARICOM outside of Trinidad
Uh-huh.
had legislation for the APIS system. So most likely, my 2-on-2, give me 5,
Right.
was the impact what place the information that they rub him down in Antigua, because this is how it works. When you're going to by the volcanoes, you have to make several stops. You go to this country, you go to that country, you go, and then you go. So when you leave Trinidad, we're not part of the APIs, but when you drop in another country, they have to forward the advanced passenger list to the other countries, and that is where the red flags start to show up. So he said, the man, if we had a legislation, the man wouldn't be embarrassed. So that gives you a sense that, hey, the money came demand. The other good news, I was fortunate to see the Blue Wave. The Blue Wave is a hell of a vessel, and I ain't getting nobody making no complaint about shipping and passenger transport to Tobago. Everybody say it was a bumper Easter in Tobago. Like the Blue Wave was rebranded. It's no longer the Calcutta ship, it's Blue Wave. So they're getting tourists down there.
Wave like
center
in
now.
in waves. In waves. On the blue wave.
You understand?
Yes.
So now, the other thing about the nurses, how can the government negotiate with an organization that hasn't got an approval and hasn't been recognized by the recognition board? They will be shooting in the dark. You understand?
Yes.
That SOPO, I call them SOPO organization, you know, because it's a bunch of nurses plus tutor, which we know is a PN and party group, and the other one, the other union who take a 2 or 3% and run with it.
Yes.
So you can't negotiate with an entity that has no leader to recognize as the thing. So you can't do that. So one of the things is they should, and I believe Tim managing it properly, getting the nurses, getting the doctors, he filling the vacancies, and when these people play the fool, instead of them out, because they play with people's lives. And one of the things, none of the so-called newspaper, they have not asked them how much debt that these nurses, when they sick out, contributed and facilitated. Because consider.
But I'm sure particularly Tim Gopi Singh, a no-nonsense man who is chairman of the North Central Regional Health Authority, I'm sure that in a short space of time, we are going to get that kind of relationship.
Information.
Statistic, statistics, yes.
Because listen to this, and this is, I've heard from a number of people. You know, when this commotion plays, the nurses were taking the keys and hiding it from the doctors and things, and so the doctors and them were basically stranded.
Yeah.
There were a number of serious cases that needed immediate emergency surgery. And they shut down the operating theater because they gone with all the keys.
Yes.
Now, you know, when you suffer some gunshots, you have to do immediate surgery. They get that priority.
Yes. Because, I mean, it's life-threatening immediately, physically.
Yeah, lead and thing in the system.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And, you know, it is natural. It's natural human response as well. But go ahead.
How those persons who are shot, the majority of them are alleged criminals, will feel that the nurses sick out contributed and facilitated to their demise. That is another way to look at it.
Yeah.
You understand? Because that man they call ED, he said non-vaccinated people should not be given the priority care in the ICU, you know. And he's still working. I was Tim, I call all them nurses, get them 3 pan of biscuit, 2 more than what the thing get them, and tell them all you want more, we go get all them more biscuit. I go and have a nice night.
Thank you as well, my friend. But of course, he has said, the caller has set the stage for, of course, some further details. Some of you who may be not familiar, not as esoteric as I am or he is, may be a bit lost. So let me put things in perspective here. He was referring to Leonce, the former parliamentary representative for Laventille East Movement, and of course a minister, I believe, yes, the Minister of Housing. And he did indicate that he was not going to put his hat in the ring for contesting the 2025 general elections. He wasn't going to do that. But then that was after the impression was, because the entire seat was left vacant, because remember it was nomination time in the PNM, and nobody had challenged him. And there was a postponement, if memory serves me right, of the screening appointment or the screening date for the screening of Laventille East Movement, because they had to get another candidate. And clearly what the caller has just said is make a nexus between the fact that at that time Leonce was accused of having some business relationship in the UK with a known or known criminal elements. And because clearly the PNM would have recognized that, would have been, of course, a political powder keg, untenable situation for their already extremely waning political fortunes. So he became expendable. So he said that he opted out for personal reasons and nobody forced him out and so on. But what the caller just exposed, clearly anybody with a modicum, a morsel, a minuscule of common sense will know that there's more in that mortar than the pestle, especially in the context that recently the present Attorney General and the Minister of Legal Affairs, Saddam Hussein, had a spat, of course, in the Parliament in relation to that very issue, whether directly, indirectly. But of course, there was the notion that the opposition became jittery when, of course, the allegations of a member of the PNM government being so compromised or associated. So they try, of course, to plead what I consider to be absolve themselves from any indication. But because the debate or these matters came up in a debate that dealt with, of course, the Advanced Passenger Information Bill, which really is saying giving advance information to the authorities where the destination of the passenger, whether they're from Trinidad and they're going to America, or America they come into Trinidad, the destination authority, the destination airport screening mechanism, customs, etc., and immigration will get an advanced information on the individual or individuals, but more significantly, to make it much more efficient and more effective, and it has become now an international benchmark or standard for such arrangement to take place because of the proliferation and the concern for transnational crimes, of course, terrorism and other other activities that no country will want to accommodate in terms of the possible track record of such a passenger or passengers. So that is what that is all about. So I just want to, so Leonce is at the center of that particular matter, and so that was raised in the parliament recently. Of course, the PNM was very defensive and very agitated, as you rightly said. I think, no, I don't think it attracted our walking out. But certainly there was some serious, not bantering, but serious exchanges even between the speaker and the opposition in the lower house last Friday. Right? So I thought I should clear that matter. The other matter that he raised, I think, requires equal attention in terms of the conduct of the former government and the PNM, but we're going to look at that in a little while. Let me continue with my original position on the whole question of the opposition and its opportunistic, parasitic, and political vulturism. Yeah, vulturism, political vulturism. Something like political cover. As I said, always preemptive, any port for a storm, not doing their homework, or more importantly, lack of strategic and therefore timely delivery, strategic timely delivery, because they can't wait, they're greedy. So as soon as they heard that warship was coming into Port of Spain, they go on that. As soon as they hear about a radar, they go on that. And every time they spit in the sky, in a real sense, it would fall in their faces. And then they have the audacity, the temerity, the gall, the effrontery to go on to the next victim of that level of what I consider being mauvais langue politics. Hit and miss, square peg and round hole analysis, and claiming that others have not done their homework. I mean, it is just pathetic. It is just dunderheaded. It is just obscene and, of course, obtuse. Obscene and obtuse. Because clearly, so let us look, for example, at the recent and is still ongoing, the issue of CARICOM and this government, and in particular the Prime Minister and that of the Foreign Affairs Minister, Sean Sobers, and their account as to whether or not Trinidad and Tobago was constructively, I prefer to use the word constructively, not been able to participate in the election or selection, as the case may be, of the Secretary General for the CARICOM in a forum that has been dubbed as not as a caucus but as a retreat, because they couldn't do it, as they said, in the plenary where everybody would have been there. And one would have expected that an exercise like that would have been done in caucus as opposed to a retreat, because a retreat, of course, connotates so that people are relaxing. And yet still you want a serious matter of the direction, the administrative direction of CARICOM to be finalized and to be addressed in such a fundamental and far-reaching, what I consider to be scenario that you use a retreat to treat with it. But I am not going to buy anybody's fight. I prefer to be, of course, objective and analytical. And the smoking gun in all of this for me is that while on the one hand, I may be concerned that you want to, of course, do such a selection in a retreat. All right? That is the decision of the Secretariat. All right? But the thing about this is the night before that election or selection was to take place, there was the understanding, and the Trinidad delegation would have understood that, because our Prime Minister, Kamala Prasad Bisesa, had to leave St. Kitts, and she left, of course, obviously, the next senior person that will be in charge, a government minister. I'm talking about the Minister of Foreign Affairs with CARICOM responsibility as well. And the night before, arrangement would have been made for him to attend on behalf of Trinidad and Tobago that exercise. But the morning of the exercise, of the day of the exercise, not a telephone call, but a WhatsApp message came to Sobers. We have a copy of it. I have a copy of it. That says that heads only can attend that particular retreat exercise to treat with such significance. Mind you, the words, the indicators that an election of that significant far-reaching nature was to be held was never part and parcel. And therefore, in the clutter of time and in the clutter of things and in the haste and the sometimes higgledy-piggledy, disordered haste and the attention to so many issues, if there is a lack of clarity in the slightest of things, the possibility exists that one may lose the opportunity to participate in something that is significant, and this is one example. You see, if they had put clearly, categorically, pellucidly, and without any kind of ambiguity as to what is the reason or what the intention is or what the exercise would have been, like for example, under the rubric of governance, I could see them putting, to make it clear that is a serious, serious exercise, the election of, or the election of Secretary General of CARICOM. I would have expected that. But barring that, let's give them that. Let's say that that is an omission. And it did not, of course, and was not, and did not find its way in, of course, the documents that the Trinidad and Tobago, and I assume all the other countries would have gotten. Let's assume that. Let's assume that. But on the morning of the exercise of that day, our Foreign Affairs Minister, Sean Sobers, got a WhatsApp saying that exercise is only, and the chairman of CARICOM insists, is only for what? For the head, the Prime Minister alone could attend. So that is clear. It means, therefore, anybody else is excluded, including the Foreign Affairs Minister. Obvious. And that is why it was sent to him. Now, there was a issue in social media in particular, but I don't think that it was something that we ought not to take seriously, or put another way, I think the veracity of it, the seriousness or the truth of it, cannot be questioned. Because Irfan Ali, the president of Guyana, said that he was satisfied that the process adopted, even though Trinidad and Tobago had and still have their doubt, their skepticism as to whether or not it was an orchestrated plot to keep Trinidad and Tobago out, or certain countries out, because I think there were two other countries that did not have their head of state, not head of state, but certainly their head as defined by the Shagaramas, or should I say CARICOM arrangement present. There were two others. So he said, Irfan Ali said that he was satisfied that the process was transparent and in the principle of democracy, within the context of what is normal for matters of this nature in CARICOM. But my common sense will tell me that Irfan Ali, the president of Guyana, being present in St. Kitts, not like Kamla Prasad Bissessa, who had left St. Kitts, he would not have been privy or would have gotten a letter or a WhatsApp saying that it's for heads only. It's obvious, because he's there. So it's only those members or member states that had their head of state left or leaving St. Kitts would have gotten that WhatsApp. It's obvious. So I can understand where he found himself, having to speak, of course, to what transpired in the way that he did, because he didn't get such a letter. But Trinidad and Tobago's delegation got one. And therefore, the response that Trinidad and Tobago ultimately provided would obviously be different to that of Guyana. But I think those who thought that that meant a split, a dichotomy, a straining of relationship between Guyana and Trinidad, and they could put some kind of spanner among the cog, and the good relationship that, of course, this government and the Guyanese government normally would share and have been sharing. I think almost the next day, as if it was like clockwork, or if it was planned or orchestrated, Irfan Ali found himself here in Trinidad. And those who were saying that the relationship would have been strained was greeted with, of course, deepening, and to a large extent, the Guyanese delegation led by Irfan Ali, the president of Guyana, insisting in, even at the level of providing a time framework, 72 hours, Trinidad and Tobago and Guyana should be talking about deepening commercial relations, and of course the exploration of the possibility of Guyana providing crude oil for our soon-to-be resuscitated oil refinery. I'm saying that as another example of how preemptive the PNM has been, and originally pessimistic, but then it turns out to be spitting in the sky and falling in the faces. So they have remained silent on this matter now that they see that there is no fallout between Guyana and Trinidad on the question of the election of Secretary General. Yes.
Right.
Miss Barnett. But let's go ahead. Go ahead, yes.
Right. I was fortunate to listen to Irfan Ali's speech at the chamber meeting.
Yes.
And one of the things he said, and I started to giggle, they asked him, he said he had 10 minutes whilst he was going through his speech. And it was he so overwhelmed the crowd that they allow him to speak. And I think I believe he spoke for about, yeah, I say his speech was so well taken
Yeah.
that they allow him some added extra
Additional
time.
time. Okay, right.
Right. So listen to this. If people read through or listen attentively, his visit was a follow-up and a continuum to Bara Jagdev visit to Trinidad, I think it's 2 years ago, addressing the San Fernando Chamber of Commerce, I think so, South Chamber of Commerce, when Bara Jagdev said he will do the opposite to what Trinidad has done. And I think Bharat Jagdev Irfan added salt into the PNM wound. And this is what he said. He said, and he was pelting big stone and people realized that. He said if Trinidad had foresight, they would have put, meaning the people who, NGC and all of them, would have put tank farms all over Guyana for natural gas. And Trinidad would have had a piece of the pie for the next 30 or 40 years. Meaning, when you have people like Malcolm Jones and Loquan, and you give them what? The order of Trinidad and Tobago. Imagine that. They sing the country. Malcolm Jones with the Naikwan, and Loquan with the two failures, the 2 years of losses, and you give these people order of Trinidad and Tobago. Eh? Now, during his speech, he let the puppy out of the bag. He was talking about energy relations with Trinidad and Tobago. And he says, sorry, you don't want to preempt anything.
Yeah.
And that has to be with the energy sector. More importantly, he basically told us that our protectionism in Trinidad and Tobago can't work again. And you realize, if people see what we have been doing, we have changed the Fair Trade Commissioners, we have changed the Food and Drugs Board or something like that.
Yes.
And we are bringing in people, because you remember the pharmaceutical thing, I think today they truncated and they abandoned it. I don't know the reason, I would like to know.
All right. Yeah, because I think there was, the debate was shifting towards a monopoly and a very unsavory, unhealthy,
no.
parasitic, should I say, small cabal.
All right.
Yeah, fleecing the people. Yeah.
The two major things that affected imports out of Guyana within the last year or so was two products. It was milk and water. And they refused to take it into Trinidad. The milk came, remained at the port, and it had to go back. And they had all sorts of barriers. Our importer actually imported, but they wouldn't allow it. And a lot of people don't understand. The milk came from the distillers, the Marara distillers, which is one of the best distillers in the world. They have the best rum, El Dorado, always the number one within the first 2 or 3 rums in the world. They have an operation second to none, based on the British standard. And water, they were also bottling water. But you know why they prevented the Guyanese shipment from coming. Remember during COVID, a bottling plant was set up somewhere in Orange Grove Estate.
That's right. Blue Waters. Blue Waters is the name of the
well,
company.
they're calling the name. I don't.
I call a name. Go ahead. Yes.
Right. And remember, they allowed that man to bring in Colombians to set up a bottling plant.
Yes.
So how could they allow, in the partner business, how they can allow Guyana to bring in bottled water here? And if people know, Guyana have more water than any part of the CARICOM. They have, I would say fresh water, salt water, all kind of water.
Yeah, brackish water and all, yes.
You understand? So simple things like that, that if people want to question the quality assurance and the quality thing. There are rarer distillers. It's second to none in terms of quality assurance and vetted by Food and Drugs and the European.
Yeah, but the local rum and spirituous alcohol lobby in Trinidad is extremely powerful, particularly and associated with, of course, the PNM. Yeah, go ahead.
Right, now we go dismantle all of that. So what we say, if we have to go further, we have to break down those barriers, those artificial barriers, and people, if they open up their eyes, they will see that is already in motion.
Yes.
So things doesn't happen by chance. You have to plan for it. Because you say the people in Trinidad don't want it at all.
Yeah. Well, it's clear that they understand the situation Trinidad and Tobago is in, and therefore they understand leverage, how to leverage. Yeah.
And people have to understand Guyana has a soft spot to for UNC government. You remember when we forgive them when they were in dire strait?
Yes.
The party forgiving the debt, and the same case Christopher Rowley run all over the world and saying, why we giving the debt, why we giving the debt? Yeah. Look how they will not deal with a KCR and a PNM government. You remember they sent down Enel? How long they sent down Enel down there? A former energy minister.
Yeah, I think he went to next door.
He was in Guyana. He was there.
In Guyana as well. All right, okay.
Yeah.
I thought he was in Suriname. I know his first assignment was. Okay.
They sent him there to try to mend things, but nobody could deal with he.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
Because you helped mess up your energy industry in Trinidad when
it busts twice under you. You help the government get slush fund by investing in Train 1 unnecessarily, and now the potential for Train 1 is real, but I think they have started the process of dismantling it. So I don't know what's going to happen there.
No, I think Train 1 will come to fruition fairly shortly. Once we start to get the level of gas from 20. Yeah,
from the various projects that cross-border notwithstanding, yeah.
Right.
No, I know that, but I read an article where they have started dismantling it. The only thing that would have been of benefit from the article that I've read is the electricity supply, which would have been diverted to assist some other grid that may have been that other trains would require. Suppose what is happening now is revisiting and redirecting in order, because of the amount of gas that is expected, that Train 1 will now become, of course, one of the trains that will be providing LNG to Trinidad. But go ahead, and Tobago, and of course for export, yeah.
One of the questions Anil asked, and it's so interesting, when Venezuela have elections in a year's time, because Trump wanted it in a year's time, who will be the president? Consider that, because you have 7 million people run from Venezuela. Once they start to go back home, and the opposition said they won because Maduro had the statement uphold.
No, well, it is clear. My common sense will tell me that it certainly wouldn't be Delcy Rodriguez.
Right.
Yeah, she's barely right now a U.S. pawn.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
just,
and begging for some kind of salvation, because I see they forgave her with respect to lifting the sanctions that they would have imposed on her. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why she went to Grenada, because Grenada said they want no radar. But Mitchell realized his people can't get visa to go to the US. They had to pay a 15,000 US bond. That's the stipulation now.
Yeah, but the opposition here would see that as some kind of slap in the face, because I think there was some kind of what I consider to be misplaced opportunity to say, well, listen, she's now the president and she gone so and so and so. But it is obvious, your common sense will tell you, if a country has designated someone as persona non grata, that was as a consequence of a serious fallout and consideration. But why she would want to come to Trinidad, and eventually I expect she would, and if not her successor would want to come to Trinidad. So let's not waste time with that. So it's a lot of room for when that time will come. Yes, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
My last point. You remember Sopo and Popo, who was marching left, right, and center with the PNM?
Yeah.
Before between 2012, 13, and 15, all along there.
Mm-hmm.
There's nurses and the tutor and a rest of people who they give out blue jersey and things for. The majority of those people is not nurses. That is another Sopo march, and people have to understand the two other unions think there was tutor, which is a PNM party group, and the other one, they had settled for
5%.
Yeah. So people have to basically watch the people who marching again. But they so, how should I say, I don't want to use a harsh term as stupid, but they haven't understood KPB 1 and KPB 2 is too different. She has 10 years of experience how not to do it.
That's right.
And her team, she has now, because she learned from the backstabbers, who backstabbers, how much, 10 ministers she gets?
Yeah, I mean, unfair games will have to play over. I've always said that, and we are seeing a manifestation of that fact in the conduct of the present Prime Minister, that she has been abused, she has been maligned, she has been denigrated, she was subjected to extreme misogynic statements, including, of course, most recent, and therefore she is well weathered, to use a geographical term. Yes, go ahead.
She survived 9 years.
All of it.
With them. 9 years in the room with them.
All of it, yes.
She
Yes,
survived. She coughed down Pandy, she coughed down Rowley, she beat Stuart and KCR in one round. She knocked out two of them. And all the hypocrites that were around her in the UNC, she put them.
All right, somebody's trying to get in, so we had to pause.
Take care.
All right, thanks very much. Yes, indeed. Very interesting indeed. And I love to have these marathons. You see, a marathon in the context of we only have an hour and a half, so we'll cut off at 9:30. But the thing about it is you get a deeper understanding when, of course, you pile on information that is so crucial. And I'm sure that those who are listening out there will get a deeper understanding, because I'm sure when, of course, Mr. Diego Martin started off, most of you were not aware that it was Leonce he was referring to. So I had to bring up the rear, so to speak, and to put things in perspective so that you could comprehensively understand the issues at hand, and to, of course, get a greater degree of clarity. But I think a good place to continue is that of the nurses. I promise that I will revisit that, so I better do it now. And let us face it, and let us be clear. The regional health authorities are different in terms of their reporting authority or management. The RHAs are autonomous body that recruits nurses, and the terms and conditions are negotiated within that environment. So they are distinct from the ordinary civil servant whose terms and conditions has already been negotiated, have already been, of course, implemented or in the process of implementation, and therefore the nurses in these RHAs cannot, with a modicum of common sense, align themselves. Whilst, of course, they can claim to want the same benefits, but it has to be negotiated because nobody negotiated for them. That is one of the points that the caller mentioned, that there is no established body to treat with that. And of course, the Nursing Association and the head clearly seem to be riding a kind of what I consider to be seesaw, and with a high degree of opportunism, because an issue of overtime with the concomitant matter of having been overpaid per hour, $75, that was supposed to be $60 for some time. And the authorities decide, of course, to right size, to reconcile that issue. That triggered the irateness of the nurses, and it led, of course, to this opportunity for the head of the Nursing Association to then mobilize in a particular way. We will deal with that after this call. President, good night. Welcome.
President, good night to you, Uncle Lennox, and all your listeners. Share the life.
Yes, ma'am.
East, west, north, and south, and all in sundries. So, Uncle Lennox, I interrupt you in the middle of your conversation.
No problem, man.
But as for being rude, I will apologize by asking you this question.
Go ahead.
The Nursing Association, is it a bargaining unit or is an association of nurses to represent
Well,
nurses?
it appears it is the latter, because, I mean, there is an argument that they are not any recognized bargaining entity for nurses, but would seek the nurses' interests outside of that specific area of bargaining as is legally required. Go ahead.
So, in the modern terms, right? If all the nurses' grievance, they take it to the association.
Right.
And in a union, you take it to your shop steward, right? And
there's a process. There's a process
Yeah.
enshrined in law. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like how Felicia,
Yes.
right?
Negotiated for the PSA. Yeah.
The President General, the head of the union, right? They now will do the bargaining terms of the 3-year periods, because every 3 years under the ILO, right?
With, of course, the government's representative, which is, of course, the CPO. Yeah.
Through the CPO, right?
Yeah, Chief Personnel
Yeah.
Officer. Yeah.
Correct, right? Now, what you want to know where I'm going with this story tonight? Because I like to talk in parables, you know.
Well, you know, I like to sort of extricate and try to unravel. I don't want to have too much enigma surrounding me. But go ahead.
Right, and the listeners will understand good. So now, the idiot Stewart come out with a grievance to the RHA, the North Central RHA chairman, and say that the chairman, you're wrong by taking away and stopping the 400 hours and all these overtime because they justify the nurses just work them hours. But for a fellow with a name like Idiotic Stewart, if 40 hours is 5 days, how much 400 will be in days? And for it to double, you have to make at least 6 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks working straight. That means you're going home, you only do work 3 weeks straight, add up your 400 hours. So you're telling me one nurse stayed 3 weeks, 24/7 on the work? Then I want to call it OSHA, because you cannot work so long without a break. So idiots just know what you're saying and how you're saying it.
Incidentally, people, of course, he's referring not to Stuart Young. Another one with a similar name, unfortunately. But go ahead, I want to make sure that the people know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, the nursing association, idiot Stuart or something like that, his name is?
Yeah. Short
Right.
or young or something like that. It could be vastly between it, but I know that people sometimes get mixed up. So you're talking about the Nurses Association, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. So after 3 weeks straight, 24/7 straight, you working nurses? Eh? What the meal allowance?
Yeah.
So you have to show all I'm thinking of. But you see, when they unravel corrupt practices, and it have people come out to condone it and support it and demand it and bully for it, that is corruption. I hope that reach the right authority for arbitration to see if anybody can make jail for fraud. Because it's not adding up in the local terms and environment on best practice either and all too. Because the PNM looking for all sort and straws. They know they cannot make it anymore again. They don't have a leader. Stuart Young is the leader. We know that for a fact. You know that Penny not pushing for any vigor. All is only criminal entity done nothing again. The poor Delcy Rodriguez now gone to Grenada to talk about Petro Caribbean and cut the call back for the money. Eh? Call back, and she calling back for she money. Who owing? Listen to what, understand what it is. But Stuart Young in the energy ministry now will want people to believe that she jump over Trinidad and she go and negotiate in Grenada for gas.
Yeah, but diplomatically and common sense. You know, in spite of the fact that she is a puppet of the United States, of President Bush. Sorry, we mean Bush now. President Trump. The fact of the matter is that she will try to leverage, and in some instances pretend. So, but of course there is this, what I consider to be elephant in the atmosphere, which is of course making Kamala Persad-Bissessar persona non grata. And everybody knows where Trinidad and Tobago stands in terms of the Prime Minister and where she has taken Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to say quickly and in turn that all of which have been positive. It turns out that the interests of Trinidad and Tobago has been well served by the what I can say meteoric and reversal of the foreign policy and the attitude to Venezuela by the new government having come into office in April 2025. So I want to make it very, very, very clear that the present situation is one where Delcy will try to save face, you know, because Maduro, remember, was a strong man before the Americans went in, saw him, took him, and of course transported him to the United States to answer criminal charges. That is the reality. So who president will come now and talking nice to Kamala, etc.? So that's a storm in a teacup. That's a non-issue. What is important is that they cannot refuse a Trinidad and Tobago delegation going to Venezuela, even though common sense will tell you Kamala Persad-Bissessar, if I was her, I will not have gone, but I would have sent my delegation, because my interest is what is about cross-border oil and gas. That's all I want. So the rest of it, whether I'm persona non grata and that is sustained, is another story, because that chapter is not yet concluded in Venezuela. Elections must be held, and the likelihood that Delcy will not be seen as a precedent for the majority of the people who can now, of course, vote free and fair and free from fear is real. Common sense will tell us that. Go ahead, my friend. Yeah.
And to justify what I just say, she is the president. She had the authority. She had the constitution and the rights of her sovereign state. Why she don't expel and tell Shell she cancel the license? And she is the president of. Yeah? And
no, she's a puppet. She's a puppet of the United States. She's a puppet of Trump. And anybody who wants to deny that, I mean, they're living in a fool's paradise. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, but you understand what I'm saying there, right?
Yeah.
She had the authority. But you see, Stuart Young now, I want him to answer that. And say, why she do it?
Stuart Young is just playing smart with foolishness. That's all it's happening. It is no different to when, of course, they would have come back, say that they have a historic deal, and then, like the ostrich, bury your head in the sand and your backside outside, and then take into account what the United States would say. And what the United States say, listen, we are dissatisfied with your performance. We're taking back that OFAC license, and we are imposing more sanctions on Venezuela, and that we are sending, of course, our military armada down south here to, of course, extricate, as history will now say, or now tell us, extricate from Venezuela that Maduro, and therefore effectively mashing up, dissolving the Maduro administration. That's reality. But go ahead.
Right, and that is to show that Stuart Young, right, when he talks, and people know what you just said there, and have this privilege to understand this program tonight, to hear it, to understand that Stuart Young himself spent $1 million a month for nothing.
Nothing.
But the UNC.
I have the audacity to comment as if, well, is a cognitive dissonance. I couldn't do it, but them doing it, but I will still try to take credit from them by saying, if it wasn't for we, at minimum, laying the foundation, hogwash, you tried and tried and tried and tried, and you failed. The people here less than a year, and they were able to succeed. Imagine if Kamala Persad-Bissessar had taken the route what Rowley and they had taken. She would not have been invited to Mar-a-Lago in Florida. She would not have been invited, of course, to be part and parcel of this hemispheric security network that was set up with, of course, other hemispheric partners, Argentina included. Let us not waste time. She would not have been able to get one-on-one meetings almost at will with Mark Rubio, and, of course, be in the presence of the president himself of the United States. That is the reality. And Trinidad and Tobago should be genuflecting, kneeling down, and thanking Kamala Persad-Bissessar for the tremendous work within a year that she has been able to accomplish, and getting, of course, the Americans, the major companies that have budgets larger than the whole of the Caribbean, are talking about Chevron and Exxon, having an interest in the oil and gas, no matter how dying and wasting our industry is because of the amount of years that we have been extracting oil and gas from our God-given blessings. And that's not waste time. It's only prosperity after prosperity after prosperity that Trinidad and Tobago. In other words, we will be bathing in US dollars in the not too distant future. And let me give you a time frame. I say by June the process will begin, and by the end of the year we will see all the major benefits unfolding before our very eyes. And these days of concern would have long passed us, because as some people say, and of course in the words of the late Black Stalin, poor man, he don't care where what come from, so long as he get his belly full and he's able, of course, to survive. Well, that will be happening in the not too distant future, and I gave you a time frame. Go ahead, my friend.
And that is why everything they want to bully and change the narrative to say that is them and claim it. So I want to tell Stuart Young, claim this one tonight too. Here what's going on. Yes, all they say 2028, prosperity and happiness will return to this country. So why it is now the separators and them moving in Galiota? Where they going? Why shall put them down there already now? But you see, what was it that who come to the light, Stuarty? And the nice thing about it, Uncle Lennox, I used to always say, where we NGL dividend, thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister, and she appointed board of NGC, that they manage the company, put the money back on the books where it's supposed to be, and pay the shareholders, because the shareholders of the IPO of NGL had responded in saving this country and raising funds. And the PNM, because the UNC had done it, they tried to mash it up, right? And I want to say tonight, thanks to the Honorable Prime Minister for appointing a board, and the chairman of Mr. Randin for one step further in recovery of this economy. And the PNM, they will try to change the narrative, because when we was campaigning against them and showing the people the truth, they are no truth to show and to put. But anyway, Stuarty, just as Uncle Lennox said tonight, by Christmas, we will get good gas on the line. So I want to ask Uncle Lennox, I want to ask you this one easy.
Go ahead.
You didn't notice when PNM lost election, Nutrient went down low and they started to say they're getting gas, and Rowley and Stuart Young say they negotiate good gas money and we will get plenty money and the benefit for Trinidad and Tobago. Rowley and Stuart Young said that, you know. But when Gerald Ramdin and the NGC negotiate gas, they say they overkill the people and the downstreamers. Pleasant good night, Uncle Lennox. God bless you.
Same to you, my friend. And the level of buffoonery, the level of obtuseness, the level of dotishness that we see portraying or projecting themselves as some kind of political as well as expert guru in the form of people like Stuart Young. It is not just irksome, not just debilitating, not just sickening, ad nauseum, but it demonstrates how puerile, how childish, how infantile, how jejune these people are. Asked by a journalist, well, $3 billion in less than a year. Short Young purporting to be this energy guru. You don't know where he get the qualification from. He says, well, listen, he went back, he was nostalgic. In the previous, of course, UNC administration, he said, they spent out, I think, $14 billion. And they read it, of course, as they would say in opposition, the NGC coffers. But anybody with a modicum of common sense, and you could give what you may call a political clout, a political slap, you will have, of course, to feel good about doing so and executing that on a fella like Short Young. While he was saying that, there was never, assuming that he was right, that they took that money out, because that was the saying in 2015, how they empty the coffers of NGC. But of course, to do matters of a national nature, to supplement the budget, etc. at the time, because he has not denied it that the monies was well spent. But why would you say such a thing when your turn a decrease between 2015 and 2025, just last year? The NGC bust twice. The NGC bust twice. You know, I always consider the NGC as an insurance company, the equivalent of an insurance company or a gas station. You could never bust because people always want insurance. And as the volume of vehicles increase, especially vehicles, you can't help but sell gas and therefore make a profit. No matter how challenging, as we have heard in recent times, that some of the operators would have been claiming in terms of their profit margin. But the fact is that you're going to make money, whether you like it or not. But NGC was supposed to be such an entity. You know, they bust that. And this fool have the audacity to talk about $14 billion was, of course, according to him, utilized, and they should have that money there for savings. And why is he saying that? Retained, they call it retained savings or retained assets, if you want to call it that as well, financial assets. Why he saying that? He is saying somehow that the government mustn't give dividend to all of the shareholders of the over $3 billion windfall that the company would have made in just less than a year. So he's saying that you should have retained earnings and don't share it out. Totally oblivious to the fact that that was part of the agreement. The people invest their money, ordinary people, institutional investors as well, and they invested it in US dollars. Why must they not get it back in US dollars when that would have been the original arrangement? You see, that is how dishonest, disingenuous, and unpatriotic and ruthless and reckless these people are and continue to be and were in office. And I could give you one simple example of how advantageous these people are because they hold the office. Remember the company called the Education Facilities Company? Ordinary people, my colleague and all, on the ground report, he had some outstanding money to collect haven't done some repairs or some kind of work for the Ministry of Education, because that company was supposed to deal with the infrastructural needs in the main for the education ministry. And therefore, whether it be school construction, whether it be the rehabilitation, whether it be the repairs to sewer systems, etc., plumbing, roofing, you name it, renovations. Small people who would have taken their hard-earned savings and maybe that of members of the family, because they have a contract, go to the hardware and maybe trust some material, because of course there's a contract, and therefore one expects that at the end of the day you could afford to credit because money is sure. You know what Rowley and they did? When dozens of these people say, well, listen, we have certificates of completion that says that the job is complete. They concocted a story that contracts were being manufactured inside of the office that they occupied on Long Circular Road in Maraval. Yeah, that's one. So they generate that propaganda. Something like when they wanted to close down Petrotrin, they said that, of course, a person who's serving tea, a janitor, making such a huge amount of money, is almost a cardinal sin for them to be earning that kind of money in an industry that is considered to be black gold. It's expected. But that's the kind of narrative they would use to thief people money, to shut down private enterprise and entrepreneurship. And this is just one example, you know, and you have to be vexed with them and tell them, frankly, they can't govern. They are brutal, they are ruthless, they are manipulative, and they're heartless, and that they have no moral or other authority to call or identify anybody else as what they are. Because they're trying to, of course, to ascribe that kind of tendency to the UNC. But I say we will have none of it, because I'm part of the coalition of interest. We'll have none of it. And we will expose them on every occasion. So in that particular case, the Education Facilities Company, guess what? The people and them take them to court. You know, they went to court and closed down the bloody and shut down the company, wind it up, so that they wouldn't pay the people and them. And they expect to get back into government and people to trust them. Let's go to the lines. A pleasant good night. Welcome to the corridor.
Hi, doctor.
Hey, man. What are you saying?
Hi, dear man. Hi, Trinidad and Tobago. Good night, worldwide.
Yes, man.
No, doctor. How long Trinidad, PNM rule Trinidad for? How many?
Well, they close to, if not more than 50 years. Close to, not more than, but essentially about 40, 45 years. Go ahead.
Right. Now, apart from PNM, how long the rest of parties rule for?
You could almost put it on your hand, on both hands. Of course, we had the NAR for 5 years. We had the UNC for 5.1 years. In other words, about six years. Then we had, of course, the Kamala Prasad Bisesa come back in for 5 years. And then again, now, we have the UNC back for, the 5 years that has not yet up. But those are the areas, you see. on my hand in terms of 5-year stints. Go ahead.
So how much years PNM didn't rule for? What the other
Well,
party ruled
those,
for? How much?
well, those years, let me say, so it's 5, 10, 15, let's say of the 40-something years that they would have, or put another way, they would have ruled for the other parties about 20 years for the most, yes, 5, 10, 15, 20, yeah, about 20 years for the most.
That PNM
Non-PNM, yeah. But PNM would have ruled for about 40, 45 years.
Right.
Yeah.
But to me, it's about 15 years because the NAR died.
Yeah.
Tamala Bisasa dies 10.
Yeah. And then you had, of course, you had Pandey 5, well, really 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. All right. So let us say about 15 years.
Yeah, I'd say 15, 20. Yeah. Go ahead.
Now, in the earliest PNM was getting a lot of oil boom and these things, right? A lot of money was circulating through the oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think people, right, should be intelligent enough to just see that and understand what we dealing with. Understand what the PNM is, right? Because you rule for so much years, right? So much oil boom, right? And all we see is the country going down, crime, people killing and walking free, right? Everything they're closing down. Okay? They want to privatize. So when they set up, people like they're not intelligent. Well, how should put it, but I would say no. It have intelligent people into that because that is why that is why we move them. So that means it have a lot of intelligent people. But you see that too. What happens for scrums and they get fool, they need to get some sense. You understand and recognize what it is really going on. Because a political party cannot be in power for all them years, all that oil boom, and right focus. That is a red place, and that is where them, and that will be the direction that party carries to yeah? People, you see that that's sense. All right, doctor. That is my contribution.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And that is why programs like these, East-West Corridor, is vital and crucial. I'm saying so because the enemy, which of course is the PNM in opposition and in government, believe that somehow, by some epiphany, by some warp and irrationality, that the country belongs to them. So they could do that to the people, as the caller rightly said, abuse them. And of course, he picked up where I left off in terms of the education facilities company, which they prefer not to pay these small contractors, close it down. And oblivious, heartless, indurate, wicked, diabolical to the fact that it has repercussions beyond the immediate decision of depriving or robbing these poor people of their hard-earned, justifiable monies. The court told these contractors that the state must pay them through the education facilities company. Rowley and they prefer to close it down and let the devil take the highway and people fend for themselves, and plunging these people into all kinds of family, I'm sure, dispute, business dispute, because the suppliers of goods, whether it be hardware, material, etc., will want their money. Those members of family who take the hard-earned nest egg and invested it, apart from the unraveling of whole families because of the sudden plunge into the doldrums of what? Of poverty. The stress, the strain, the pain, the ache, the agony, the disconcertedness, and the feeling of being suicidal are all parts of it. Why I'm saying that? Because that is what happened to those, or some of those persons who were disconnected to Petrotrin. But it has more serious repercussions when you take in government, or as a government, such inhumane, such ruthless, such brutal, such savage measures. You see, we live in a very information savvy and instantaneous world, and these matters will reach through this very medium here internationally, and investors will say, listen, that government supposed to be a democratic government. All the literature on Trinidad and Tobago will show that we are enticing and amenable and support, of course, small business and investment. And you have a government that says, listen, I owe you, but I'm going to court and close down the company, so nothing for you. You could only get that blatantly maybe in North Korea. And I don't even believe you could get it so blatant in Russia. Yeah? Close it down and plunge these entrepreneurs and risk takers to a life of poverty, if I'm sure many of whom would have been sufficiently resilient to overcome this tragedy perpetrated on them by the state, by the government apparatus under PNM. And will they still have belly to even consider what is happening today? Whether with the closure, and we will deal with that, because that too is an illusion. That somehow you depend on your European independence. But no, you don't depend on that. That can only provide you preliminarily and cursorily and in synoptic term, 700 a fortnight. You're entitled to three fortnights. Century's $2,100. In reality, if it is to work and you eliminate all of the scams and all of those who want an unfair share of the URP, CPEP, or of course the reforestation pie. Yeah? It's a waste time. You do not. And while, of course, I would have done it differently, because there are those who are absolutely innocent and who depend on that flow to augment their basket of financial resources to keep them going, particularly in urban communities such as the East-West corridor in particular. I understand. I would have done it differently, and I've expressed how I would have done it. But when one compares with the PNM's approach, it is savage. It is barbaric. And they had every opportunity. They created the quagmire and the morass that the country has found itself in. And you have those, limited as they are, that's how I like to describe it. Limited as they are, listening to these buffoons and these opportunistic political parasites who will spare nothing to get back into office, so they believe, so that they can continue to do us harm. We have to be circumspect, and programs like these are designed to disabuse and to have you understand that you have a duty to yourself, your children, and your children's children, and your country to avoid that pitfall. Can't tell me that the alternative is what? Is them? No. They're too stupid. They're too evil. They're too wicked. They're too deceptive. And when you see them, of course, I watch Gonzalez and them the other day. They suit, spick and span, and they talk in a particular way like Amy Brown. You could swear from the impeccable nature of their clothing that there is an equal impeccability in terms of the character and personality. No, it stinks. Wolf in sheep clothing. That is what that is. Do not be fooled. Do not be fooled. People, of course, we have come to the end of tonight's program. Oh, it is 9:50 already, man. Sorry about that. I had a video to play. Let me see if I could just, but we'll deal with that tomorrow night, because it has to do with the
CARICOM heads, dignitaries, distinguished guests. I welcome for the first time to a CARICOM meeting from one Twin Island Republic to another one here, Trinidad and Tobago.
The CARICOM heads of government.
It has to do with the statement made by the opposition, Amy Brown in particular, saying that Kamala Persad-Bissessar was disrespectful to the Secretary General of CARICOM because she didn't address her or acknowledge her. Total lies. It is the reverse. The Secretary General was disrespectful to Kamala Persad-Bissessar because at one point in time she was talking about the newly elected prime ministers and never mentioned Kamala Persad-Bissessar. Never mentioned. Who is disrespectful? And both of them, when they get the opportunity, would have had to address by way of salutation, the head of state, all of them. But Barnett had an additional responsibility in her speech and delivered, of course, acknowledgement of the newly elected prime ministers and never mentioned Kamala Prasad Bisesa, Hold Tail, Amy Brown. A little damn deceitful, deceiving, self-serving, wicked, and politically not just parasitic, but clearly it is now clear you are politically dumb, collectively and individually. Tomorrow night, of course, we will look at that. We will begin with that particular clip that you are see playing in the background, and we will treat with that particular matter. But I just thought I should just show it up for a moment so you'll see. Let me just make it much more probably messy. Let me see if I can get it there. All right, we'll make it happen tomorrow. I just, oh no, there's it there. Yeah. So you see it here as well. Now people, so people, of course, have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. Don't forget tomorrow morning, the ground report, Andy, Mike, and myself, of course, on 91.1 Talk City. And we'll be back here tomorrow night as we continue with these and other matters. Let us end as we started. I think this young man, Young, I don't know why they had the name Young. He is a disgrace to the term and the name and the appellation and the surname or the first name Young. But nonetheless, the political Young are talking about the Chinese man. But let's hear it. Let's end as we started. Yes.
And give me inch by inch, roll back on it inch by inch, rub up on it inch by inch, and don't leave no space between us. Roll back on it inch by inch, throw back on it inch by inch, rub up on it inch by inch, and don't leave no space between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. If we just hold on tight, nobody can come between us. Even the sunlight can't come between us. Just hold on tight, yeah. She say like a bumper invitation. Don't be shy when I come around. This special flex is for special guests. I am one in a million. And if I tired of the jumping, I take a trip and let me groove along. Sexy whining, little levy, you come together like a slow song. This time it is your time, baby. Let's focus on this wine, baby. This fed go be one of a kind, so prepare your mind and get ready for the jamming. You go have a time of your life. This sweetness feels like paradise. The way you walk on, you like any vibe. Something wrong now with a little vibe. So baby, just relax and give me inch by inch.